Jeremy had never thought much about heroism. On Earth, his greatest adventures involved repairing malfunctioning coffee machines and accidentally launching his neighbor's drone into a tree. So when the holographic email popped into his inbox one Tuesday morning, announcing an intergalactic tournament with the prize of marrying the daughter of the alien king, his first instinct was to assume it was a marketing gimmick. "Yeah, sure," he muttered, scratching his head, because nothing says romance like competing with a tentacled alien in zero gravity. Still, the email had a strange allure. The hologram itself shimmered with colors he didn't recognize, pinks and teals that seemed almost liquid, and the words repeated themselves in a melodious hum. "Do you dare compete for glory and love across the stars?" Jeremy, whose life mostly consisted of long nights debugging software and eating instant noodles, couldn't resist. He clicked accept, half expecting a spam filter to explode. Within moments, the room dissolved around him. Gravity seemed to hiccup, the walls of his tiny apartment folding like origami, and then pop. He was aboard a colossal space station, hovering above a swirling gas giant. The station was enormous, gleaming metal corridors stretching as far as his eyes could see, dotted with alien life forms of every imaginable shape. A four-armed negotiator waved at him, though he wasn't sure if it was a greeting or an elaborate insult. Jeremy waved back awkwardly, nearly tripping over his own feet, which had yet to adjust to the station's fluctuating gravity. A small voice in his head whispered, "You're definitely not on Earth anymore." He wandered into the main arena, a vast chamber with platforms floating like islands in a sea of artificial gravity. Competitors from dozens of worlds were practicing, some sparring with lightsaber-like weapons, others morphing their bodies into bizarre shapes. Jeremy clutched the instruction manual he had been given, which was mostly diagrams of shapes he didn't recognize and warnings like, "Do not, under any circumstances, touch the glowing orb of doom." Naturally, that was the first thing he touched. Sparks shot out, and he jumped back with a startled yelp, narrowly avoiding a collision with a hovering food cart. A hovering alien nearby chuckled in a way that sounded like a xylophone being crushed. Jeremy bowed awkwardly and muttered, Greetings." From above, a figure watched him with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Princess Alara, her long, elegant ears brushing against the sides of her luminous face, leaned on the edge of a transparent observation deck. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, her hair cascading in silver waves, and her eyes sparkled with humor as she observed the human who seemed determined to self-destruct at every step. Jeremy, oblivious to the gaze, attempted to practice a combat stance he had seen in a holo tutorial. He tripped over his own feet, swung the blaster like a conductor's baton, and accidentally catapulted a rival into a stack of crates. Alara's laughter was melodic, echoing through the chamber, and for a brief moment Jeremy froze, realizing someone or something was watching him. Determined to salvage dignity, he muttered to himself, "Okay, maybe I can do this." How hard can alien combat be? At that precise moment, a malfunctioning drone flew past, smacking him in the forehead. "Ow," I said, "how hard?" he shouted, rubbing the bump. Alara giggled again, her amusement unrestrained, and somewhere in the chaos, Jeremy felt a spark of thrill. The galaxy was immense, strange, and terrifying, and somehow, absurdly, he was a part of it. He straightened his shoulders, looked around, and for the first time in his uneventful life, felt ready to face the impossible. Jeremy had barely caught his breath after surviving his first day on the tournament station when he realized that surviving wasn't enough. He actually had to compete. The morning announcements crackled through the artificial gravity, delivered by a holographic announcer with an accent that sounded like a chorus of singing metal spoons. "Contestants, prepare for the obstacle gauntlet. The winner demonstrates skill, wit, and minimal property damage." Jeremy muttered to himself, "Minimal property damage. I think I already failed before breakfast." He shuffled toward the starting platform, clutching a borrowed combat harness that seemed designed for someone twice his size. The other competitors, aliens with 6 arms, wings, or semi-transparent skin revealing bioluminescent veins, stood poised and intimidating. Jeremy noticed a particularly haughty alien polishing its weapon with something that looked like a cross between toothpaste and starlight. He gave a nervous thumbs up, which may have been mistaken for a threatening gesture because the alien hissed. Great, Jeremy thought. First impressions matter. The gauntlet was chaos incarnate. Floating platforms, laser grids, anti-gravity swings, and holographic monsters, all programmed to challenge even the most experienced competitors. Jeremy stepped onto the first platform, misjudged the anti-gravity field, and floated headfirst into a spinning holographic chandelier. Why do these things even spin? He yelled, dangling upside down while a holographic dragon glared at him as if personally offended. Somehow, he managed to swing himself free using a conveniently placed energy rope, only to land in a pool of glowing slime that made a loud farting noise on contact. The spectators, including Princess Alara, erupted in laughter. Alara's long ears twitched with amusement as she pressed her hand to her mouth, her eyes sparkling with delight. By the third obstacle, Jeremy realized he could turn his awkwardness into an advantage. When a massive, 3-headed robotic sentinel lunged at him, instead of dodging, he tripped over a conveniently floating toolbox, sending the sentinel into a confused spin. Did I just win? He asked aloud, blinking. The nearest alien competitor glared, but Jeremy couldn't help smirking. This was Earth ingenuity at its finest, unintentional slapstick as a form of combat. Between obstacles, he tried to catch glimpses of Alara, and each time she appeared, he felt a strange mixture of dread and excitement. During a particularly tense moment, he accidentally activated a portal that teleported him, and part of the obstacle course, into the middle of the spectators' area. Aliens shrieked, some laughing, some screaming, and one attempted to take a selfie with him mid-flight. Jeremy landed with a graceless thud next to Alara, who clapped slowly, eyes glittering with humor. "You always make an entrance," she said, voice teasing. "I try," Jeremy replied, still scraping slime off his jacket. The gauntlet ended in a zero-gravity chamber where he had to navigate floating energy orbs. Jeremy, who had never been good at anything resembling coordination, decided to improvise. He grabbed an orb, swung it like a baseball, and accidentally knocked out half the chamber's holographic defenses. Spectators cheered, some in confusion, some genuinely impressed, and the announcer's voice boomed. "Earth contestant demonstrates creative destruction." Jeremy bowed a little awkwardly as the princess laughed so hard her shoulders shook. By the time he stumbled off the course, sticky, bruised, and entirely exhilarated, Jeremy realized something odd. He was beginning to enjoy this chaos. Each misstep, each accidental victory, each laugh shared with Alara added layers of thrill he had never felt in his quiet, predictable life on Earth. And while he had no idea what the next round would bring, he felt a surprising confidence swelling inside him. Perhaps surviving the gauntlet wasn't about skill alone. It was about embracing absurdity, trusting his instincts, and for some inexplicable reason, entertaining the girl with long, luminous ears who seemed to find his every mistake irresistible. Jeremy woke up to the gentle hum of the space station's artificial sun, which, despite being a perfect replica of Earth's daylight, gave his room a faintly lavender tint that made him feel like he was inside a giant cotton candy machine. His first thought, predictably, was, "Don't trip today." The previous day's gauntlet had left him sore, sticky, and strangely exhilarated, and though his limbs protested, he felt an unfamiliar sense of purpose. Breakfast in the station's mess hall was a spectacle in itself. Sentient cereal that debated philosophy with the milk, eggs that levitated gently before breaking themselves into perfectly cooked omelets, and a juice dispenser that occasionally squirted colored light instead of liquid. Jeremy, armed with a fork and more caution than skill, managed to eat without incident, only to accidentally spill glowing orange juice on a passing six-limbed alien, prompting a series of indignant screeches that sounded suspiciously like applause. The day's challenge was announced: a mental and diplomatic trial on a floating asteroid platform orbiting a ringed planet. Competitors had to navigate a labyrinth of holographic riddles, negotiate with artificially intelligent alien diplomats, and retrieve a quantum crystal without triggering the platform's self-destruct protocol, a problem that had ended several careers in spectacular fashion. Jeremy blinked at the briefing, trying to parse the diagrams, which looked like a cross between Escher drawings and circuit schematics. "Okay," he muttered, "just don't touch the flashing red button." "Got it." As he floated into the labyrinth, Jeremy realized his lack of experience in interstellar diplomacy might be a blessing. While others attempted complicated alien gestures and indecipherable honor codes, he relied on what he knew best: common sense, humor, and awkward honesty. When a holographic ambassador accused him of subverting galactic protocols by standing on one foot, he shrugged and said, "I'm just stretching. You should try it." The ambassador tilted its crystalline head, apparently confused, giving Jeremy just enough time to swipe the quantum crystal from a pedestal that shimmered in defiance of gravity. He winced as alarms blared, but instead of panicking, he danced a little jig, hoping the absurdity might confuse the sensors. Remarkably, it worked. Princess Alara appeared in several hidden observation points, her long ears twitching with amusement every time Jeremy narrowly avoided disaster in ways that no one else would dare. She left him subtle hints encoded in the starlight patterns projected along the labyrinth walls, tiny shifts in illumination guiding him past pitfalls. Jeremy, oblivious to the sophistication of her assistance, thought he was simply imagining things and occasionally whispered, "Thanks, imaginary fairy," as he scooted past sentient tripwires and teleporting floors. Halfway through, Jeremy accidentally triggered a protocol that released a pack of holographic space wolves. While competitors panicked, he improvised, tossing a floating orb at the nearest wolf, which bounced off its projection and ricocheted into a chain reaction of wolf disappearances. "Yes, take that, pixel predators," he shouted, pumping a fist in zero gravity and spinning into a gentle collision with a support beam. Alara laughed so loudly that a nearby observer mistook it for an alarm, causing minor chaos among the other contestants. By the time he exited the labyrinth, slightly singed but intact, Jeremy realized he was starting to understand the rhythm of this bizarre tournament. It wasn't about raw power or alien perfection. It was about adaptability, creativity, and a willingness to embrace mistakes as opportunities. The crowd, including Alara, cheered in a mix of genuine admiration and amusement at his unconventional methods. For the first time, Jeremy felt a strange sense of belonging in the vast, unpredictable galaxy. That evening, he found himself walking along the observation deck with Alara, her silver hair brushing lightly against his arm. "You make this look entertaining," she said, her voice teasing. Jeremy scratched his head. "Entertaining? I thought I was supposed to be impressive." She laughed, the sound bright and melodic, and pointed toward the ringed planet below. "Impressive is boring. Funny, clever, and a little chaotic, that's memorable." Jeremy grinned, realizing that perhaps chaos, when mixed with courage, was exactly the kind of skill needed to survive an interstellar tournament, and maybe, just maybe, to win the heart of a princess with long, elegant ears. The semifinals were less about brute strength and more about cunning, diplomacy, and keeping one's lunch down while navigating a labyrinth of alien absurdities. Jeremy shuffled onto the platform, glancing nervously at the competitors, who glared at him like predators spotting a particularly clumsy prey. One of them, a six-limbed crustacean with eyes on stalks, snapped its claws menacingly. Jeremy waved awkwardly. "Hi, I'm Jeremy, Earthling, friendly." The alien froze for a moment, apparently unsure whether to claw him or politely nod. Jeremy took it as a small victory. The challenge was announced: a simulation of a planetary crisis requiring negotiation, strategy, and creative problem-solving. The holographic environment morphed into a miniature city under siege by rogue drones, collapsing buildings, and randomly erupting geysers of purple gas. Jeremy blinked at the chaos and muttered, "Well, Earth had traffic jams. This is like traffic jams on steroids." He quickly realized that traditional tactics wouldn't work. Where others relied on complex alien codes and force projections, Jeremy improvised, using humor and logic in ways no one anticipated. He distracted a squad of attacking drones with a series of poorly timed jokes about intergalactic bureaucracy, causing them to spin in confusion long enough for him to redirect them into harmless containment fields. Princess Alara, watching from her hidden observation post, smiled as her long ears twitched every time Jeremy narrowly avoided disaster in ways that no one else would dare. She left subtle hints in the holographic environment, glimmers on a building edge, a nudge of gravitational adjustment, without ever overtly intervening. Jeremy, blissfully unaware, assumed luck was entirely on his side. Somebody must have pressed the "make it easier for Jeremy" button, he muttered, ducking an erupting geyser with surprising dexterity. Halfway through the trial, Jeremy encountered a particularly stubborn obstacle. A sentient AI judge that demanded he solve a paradoxical puzzle while under a time limit. He stared at the intricate holographic symbols, sighed, and then tried something unorthodox. He told the AI a joke about quantum entanglement and coffee. The AI paused, its circuits apparently caught in existential confusion. Jeremy, seeing his chance, tapped a few switches at random, which happened to solve the puzzle. The audience, including Alara, who was quietly stifling laughter, cheered, and Jeremy bowed to the digital judge. "You're welcome. Glad I could, enlighten you." The final portion of the trial involved mediating a dispute between two factions of holographic aliens, each more absurd than the last. Jeremy, relying on empathy, improvisation, and occasional physical comedy, he tripped over his own feet at the most convenient moments, managed to broker peace, even earning a faint smile from one of the more cantankerous holograms. Alara's amusement was unabated. She had begun leaving little messages in the light patterns just for him, which he read as cryptic but oddly encouraging. At the end of the challenge, Jeremy stood amidst floating confetti and holographic fireworks, sticky from geyser residue but triumphant. The announcer declared him the victor of the semifinals, calling him Earth's unpredictable genius, and Jeremy waved sheepishly, almost knocking over a hovering panel in the process. Alara's laughter floated toward him, melodic and warm, and he realized that, beyond the chaos, beyond the strange trials and improbable victories, he was beginning to understand the rhythm of this tournament. Survive, improvise, laugh, and maybe, just maybe, win the heart of the princess whose long ears had become impossibly familiar in his thoughts. The final rounds approached with an intensity that could have terrified anyone else, but Jeremy felt ready. The arena had transformed into a surreal landscape of floating asteroids, fragmented holographic cities, and molten plasma streams weaving through gravity-defying canals. His opponent, the top alien champion, radiated an aura of unstoppable power. Jeremy swallowed, adjusting his blaster strap. Simple, totally simple. Nothing could possibly go wrong. The duel began. Jeremy dodged instinctively, misfired his blaster into a conduit, creating a dazzling firework display. The champion stopped mid-charge, confused by the sparkling spectacle. Jeremy spun in zero gravity, kicked a loose panel into the champion's legs, and the alien yelped in pain or protest. Princess Alara watched from above, her long ears tilting forward in delight. She had been leaving subtle hints in the arena, guiding Jeremy without him realizing. At one point, Jeremy shouted, "Okay, universe, let's make a deal. I get through this without major property damage, you give me a trophy." He ducked a plasma arc, slipped on a cable, and tumbled into floating debris. The audience roared, the announcer stifled a chuckle, and Jeremy grinned through the chaos. Halfway through, the arena transformed into a zero-gravity obstacle course over a miniature black hole. Jeremy grabbed a floating cable, swung himself toward the champion, and accidentally entangled its legs. The alien crashed into holographic crates, suspended humorously above the floor. The crowd erupted, and Jeremy raised his arms in wobbling victory. Alara descended afterward, brushing a hand against his arm. "You really have a talent for surviving spectacularly," she said. Jeremy laughed. "I call it style." She shook her head, amusement clear. "Chaos has its own charm," she said. Jeremy floated above the arena, still sticky with plasma residue as the alien king announced, "Behold, the victor, a human from Earth." Cheers filled the chamber, and Jeremy waved sheepishly, nearly tipping a ceremonial platform. Princess Alara descended gracefully, her silver hair cascading, long ears brushing her shoulders. "Congratulations," she said teasingly. "You didn't just survive, you made this entertaining." Jeremy bowed clumsily. "I aim to please mostly myself." The king approached. "Jeremy of Earth, you have displayed courage, ingenuity, and a unique approach to problem-solving." Jeremy grinned awkwardly. "Accidental genius, your majesty." Alara snorted, and even the king softened. Walking to the central dais, Jeremy tripped and barely avoided plunging into a holographic river of starlight, prompting Alara's melodic laughter. "You make everything an adventure," she said. Jeremy realized he had changed. No longer timid, now resourceful, daring, and capable of surviving a galaxy of chaos. The king decreed Alara's hand for the victor. She stepped close, eyes reflecting nebulae. "I've watched you not just because you won, but because of how you faced everything with courage, humor, and heart." Jeremy laughed nervously. "I mostly tripped into solutions." She smiled warmly. As confetti and fireworks filled the zero-gravity chamber, Jeremy understood that humor, ingenuity, and resilience had brought him victory. But connection, trust, and courage had made him more than a winner. They had made him part of something extraordinary. Walking alongside Alara later, their hands brushing, Jeremy marveled at his growth. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and absurd. But with courage, humor, and a little heart, even an ordinary human could leave an extraordinary mark. Together, they looked out at the endless stars, ready for the adventures that awaited beyond the tournament, a new chapter beginning in the infinite cosmos.